Welcome to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Delighted to say we have a very special guest with us this afternoon. It's former Hibs, Rangers and Scotland midfielder Kevin Thomson. Kevin, great to have you with us on PLZ Soccer this afternoon. Let's start with Rangers yesterday. A disappointing draw up in Pittodrie, but what have you made of the first 6 weeks of Philippe Clement at Ibrox?
I think he's been a breath of fresh air. I think he spoke really passionately. He spoke. I think listen, I'm not any different for any other fan, I suppose, but I think he's relatable, which I think is really important. I think the fans under Michael Beale were a bit delusional and getting a bit fed up of kind of aftermath of the same lingo after lingo after lingo. So, and listen, I like Michael really, like massively. He was great for me, but listen, I'm not the fans. They've got their own voice, but I could see where they were coming through. And when I've seen Clement come in, he's been quite direct, he's been quite straight to the point. His results, to be fair, up until yesterday, obviously a disappointing result up at Aberdeen with Celtic dropping points on the Saturday. But I think he's been a breath of fresh air. I think he'll know how difficult a club it is already, he'll know the expectation, but he seems to be embracing it. And listen, he doesn't need me to tell him or anyone else. I know Celtic are a really good team, they've got a really good manager. They've been over the course and distance many times before, so they know what it takes to win trophies. They've got a very good squad, and there's no doubt they're going to be a tough nut to crack. But I think from the Rangers' perspective, they have to believe that they can do it. And already, if they win their game in hand, to be 5 points behind and already sacking their manager through the course of this season shows you that the gap ain't too big. And I think anyone that's got the right mind would be naive to think that it's already a foregone conclusion that Celtic are going to go and win the league.
Do you expect Rangers to mount a title challenge then this season, Kevin? You mentioned there you don't think the gap's too big. It seems now with Philippe Clement in charge that there's been a certain mentality shift, particularly within the supporters, that a title race could be on. Would you agree with that?
Listen, I think, and I know Celtic won't. Listen, the fans can have every opinion they want to have, but I know internally, no matter how far in front Celtic will be, they'll have the mentality to keep on going, and they'll know that it's not over until it's over. Listen, we're early on in the season, as I mentioned. The Rangers have already sacked a manager, so that tells you that they've had a bit of a stumbling start. But the fact that winning their game in hand will be easier said than done, because no game's easy, especially representing an old firm. Everybody wants to beat you, but if they do go and win their game in hand, it was a big opportunity missed, I think, on Sunday there with Celtic dropping points. Because I don't think they'll drop many. I do think, post-Christmas, if they don't have European football, which might be the case, is probably another added downfall for Rangers, not having the big European nights, and then, potentially Celtic dropping points and having to travel all over the world as such and put on big performances. Some teams might catch them cold on the early kick-off on a Sunday morning, on a Sunday afternoon or what, but I would say that would be an advantage to Celtic if they do get knocked out in Rangers and out of Europe, and a disadvantage for Rangers. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But I think the mentality, listen, I've been in teams that have won leagues and been well in front, and also been the team that's chasing, and people can say what they want, but when internally, both teams, the Rangers will be hurting because they didn't get the points on Sunday, and they'll feel as though it was an opportunity missed, and Celtic will have their tails up again because they'll feel as though dropping points the way it happened and they've materialised, obviously conceding late in the injury time on Saturday, probably gave Rangers a wee impetus to try and put the foot on the gas. But that'll now, it's amazing how it changes so quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out as the season goes on. But I certainly think there's, you'd be naive to think that this is over already.
Yeah, a lot of the chat from yesterday's game is about the incident involving Connor Goldson and Stefan Gartenmann in the final minute, a penalty awarded for Rangers. What was your take on that incident and the awarding of a penalty kick?
Yeah, I think it's soft. But listen, he's got full hand on Connor Goldson's jersey. It's naive, really, and probably let his team down. But at the same time, it's soft. It's mad. I'm one of the people that, I'm quite open to say that there's a lot of contact in the game. There's probably loads of grappling, and I do see Lammer's block. I know Barry Robson really well. It's I could sense that obviously there was a frustration. I like to listen to these managers, post-match interviews, etc., and get their take on it, I suppose. And I think Clement will be right in saying that the team kept on going, and then you just never know how big a point that may be. You know what I mean? Having the mentality to keep on going, and then the mentality for James Tavernier to step up under immense pressure to obviously put the ball in the back of the net, and then have a big chance, obviously, with Lammers as well. But I think the the individual talking point is probably a sense. And I see Stephen Naismith talk about it regularly. I see Barry Robson. I see a lot of managers, Stuart Kettlewells, etc. And I suppose the inconsistency is the bit that gets people's knickers in a twist, really, and it makes frustration, and it's always a boiling point. It's always a talking point, and I would rather talk about the boys' finish they start with, which was an unbelievable finish. You're thinking that he should take a touch, and then he hits it first time, and it's a wonderful finish, and then I suppose I'm one of the advocates to try and promote the game and talk about how good the teams are and the players are and the managers and tactically how aware they are. And we always keep on talking about these incidents. But listen, there are big moments in games, and the harsh reality is people's livelihoods are in place, and success as a manager for a Barry Robson or whatever is you can sometimes be find yourself under pressure because decisions go against you. So I feel the frustration. For me, I just think it's happening too often, and the inconsistencies. But the harsh reality is, he pulls his jersey, the law says it's a penalty. But in my opinion, when you play the game, it's probably mighty soft. But at the same time, what do? You need to abide by the rules, really.
Yeah, big week for Rangers this week on the European front as well. Aris Limassol at Ibrox on Thursday. What do you think the expectation is now for Rangers in the Europa League? Where should they be aiming to get to, and how far do you think they can go?
Well, they've obviously got to get through the group, but I think when you see some of the English teams and some of the European teams that are obviously going to progress, and when you get to knockout stages, it could be really difficult. You could play against some top teams, but I think they have to have the mentality. As a group of players, they've only a year and a bit back they went all the way to Seville, so it's played in a team that played against lots of teams that were better than us, and we found ways. We had the mentality and that winning drive really as a group that we would never lie down to anyone, and we found ways of probably winning games of football when we're up against it. So I would imagine that time will come for Rangers. I think they have to be thinking, obviously, first and foremost, get through the group and then see what the draws bring them, really. But I would say, like, at their best, and you need to be at your best when you play against these teams. They're more than capable of matching anyone. But at the same time, if you underperform, i.e. like they did when I done the game for the TV over in Limassol, that you probably scratch your head to think how disappointing performance that was. But at the same time, the group was probably hurting. It was a transitioning manager. You had Steve Davis, who's highly respected within every quarters of the club, leading through the front really, and probably itching to put his boots on and be in the height of the action. So a lot of stuff logistically, without making excuses, could have played a part in that. But to think how that performance was there, it's certainly one that Rangers need to erase, because if they want to have some sort of success in Europe, then the performances when you think you're going all the way to Seville are probably the type of performances that they're going to need to put on if they want to have any aspirations of getting further in the competition.
Yeah, let's talk about Scotland as well, Kevin. From one great European journey to another, this campaign has been fantastic for the national team. What was your reaction when eventually it was confirmed that Scotland would be hurling to Germany in 2024 for a second consecutive European Championships?
First and foremost, I thought about how much money it was going to cost me, because my kids both want to go to Germany. So that was how miserable I am and how tight I am. I was thinking, oh no, they're going to cost me a lot of money. But nah, listen, amazing. I played with John obviously when I was at Hibs, tail end of my career. I know quite a few of the boys, so delighted for them and delighted for Steve and all the staff and the nation really, because listen, I grew up a football fan first and foremost, whether I was lucky enough to obviously play and kind of make a career out of it. But I've got two wee kids I'm saying wee now, they're 13 and 11, that have aspirations of obviously trying to be footballers one day, and trying to support them and see how excited they get when they're obviously high bees, so they get excited or probably down when Hibs don't do particularly well, and obviously a high when they do well. And the same as when it comes to Scotland games, they're always wanting to watch them, they're always wanting to go. So it's great that the boys and, as I say, Steve and the staff have gave us Scotland fans some hope and some excitement, and a team to be proud of. I think that's the overriding emotion really. A team that's got a group of lots of quality individuals that Steve's created an environment that they all look forward to playing. You've got big hitters sitting on the bench, boys that probably mainstays within their team at clubs, and they're coming away and maybe not getting many minutes. So that's testament to Steve and his staff to create that environment, that there's a togetherness, there's a will for boys that are maybe not quite at the forefront of it to come and complement the squad, and I'm pretty sure the intensity in training, everything around the hotels that they're staying in is tip top, and there's there's nobody lagging behind really dragging the group down or the standard down. So I'm delighted to see that they've had the success they deserve, and it's kind of watching from afar, I suppose, to see how far they can go, because knockout competitions and it's probably different game plans, and it'll be interesting to see how Steve and the boys approach it, because it's obviously kind of winner takes all when you get to the Euros and going to play against these big nations, and then they need to turn up obviously in the group stages to try and have the aspirations of getting through it.
Yeah, last time at the Euros, it seemed like it was just a celebration that we were there and that we were participating. But I feel like if the expectation has shifted now, that there's an expectation that Scotland will go to the Euros and perform. Of course, never have Scotland managed to progress out of the group stage of a major finals. Kevin, could this be the year? Could 2024 be the year that finally that happens?
I think the group will believe they can. I think they've, when you think of the makeup of the squad, the big hitters like your Johns, your Kieran Tierney's, your Andy Robertsons, they're playing at a high level at club football. Do you know what I mean? And that's not doing anyone else a disservice, because there's plenty of others within the squad as well. I think they'll have the mentality, and that'll be sprinkling through the group really when they meet up. How much these boys win, and their mentality to drive to be the best they can be, I suppose, and that'll rub off, I suppose, on everybody else in the group. You think of the younger ones coming through, your Billies, your Ryan Porteouses, etc. So they'll all be getting an insight into that. And listen, that's probably doing Billy a disservice at the level that he's playing at. But when you think of Ryan in the Championship and coming for Hibs, and he's then going away with the kind of big hitters in the squad, and he's pushing himself in there to be a mainstay. You know what I mean? So I think the way Steve's integrated the younger ones, plus lent on the older ones, the big hitters, the experience within the group, I think he's got a brilliant blend. And I'm not so sure that group, and I'm only looking for afar really, because I've not got an insight into it, but I'm not so sure the mentality of that group is going there to make up the numbers. I think they go there believing that they can get out the group, but I know easier said than done. I know it's never been done before, but at the same time, I think the makeup of the group and so many players playing at such a good level, at club level, I think it can only bode well really for the opportunities. I think no matter what nation they come up against, they proved in the group stages, obviously with Spain result, etc., albeit they've had a couple sore ones off England and France in recent times, but that'll have gave Steve food for thought, and the type of coach he is. I think he would, if he could have the games again, which I think he wanted the games for the experience to sample that to the type of nations that they'll play obviously at the Euros, then I think it will stand the group in good stead.
Yeah, everyone seems to be debating who's going to make the squad, who's going to be left at home. There are a lot of players, because the squad's been so consistent, that can probably count themselves in for the flight to Germany. But at either end of the pitch, there is still decisions to be made, particularly in the goalkeeping department and in the forward areas. Who would you like to see on that plane? We'll start with the goalkeepers first.
Well, obviously Craig Gordon's a big talking point, isn't he? I think Gunn's pretty much cemented themselves the kind of number one off the back of Craig. Whether Craig's going to be fit enough, whether the dialogue between him and Steve is in place, I don't know. I suppose we're just kind of summarising really. There's no doubt that Craig Gordon's experience and the level of goalkeeper that he is, he could play a big part for sure. And I'm sure the type of person he is, he'll be itching. If he is fit, he'll be on that phone to Steve, or hoping that phone call will come for Steve to see where he's at. And then when you look at McCrory, obviously a younger goalie, I know him really well from my time obviously at Rangers, and then obviously you got Xander Clark who's come in and tried to stake a claim for himself, I suppose, to try and put pressure on Gunn. So it's an interesting one. I never knew until you told me just before we started that the squad would have to take 3 goalkeepers. I presumed that there would be 3 anyway, but I wasn't sure if there was a grey area where you could potentially get away with 2. But I suppose the 3, and I suppose Craig's the only one that really puts the cat in amongst the pigeons, I suppose. And we're just summarising, as I say, whether Steve, whether he's going to be fit enough, I suppose is the first question. But whether Steve deems that he's in the right fitness level and played the right game time to justify a space in the squad, will only, I suppose, materialise in time. But it's an interesting one to go, because I think Gunn's done himself really well. I think Xander Clark is a good goalkeeper, and McCrory's the one that's kind of the unknown really. Do you know what I mean? Just waiting in the wings for an opportunity. I suppose you could argue at club level as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out and what Steve goes with. But without being disrespectful to the goalies, because I think they're all good in their own right. I'm not so sure anyone will be thinking I'm definitely on the plane, if you know what I mean, because I think it's a tricky position, and I'm sure a few of the boys will be quite nervous because you just never know. Well, obviously Craig, I think making that, if Craig's not fit, then that dynamic totally changes. But he'll certainly put a bit of pressure on the ones that might think they've got an opportunity going in the squad for sure.
What about in the forward areas then? Probably two players that everyone's speaking about. One being Lawrence Shankland, got that goal off the bench in Georgia. Does he make the squad? And the other, of course, is Ben Doak, uncapped at the minute, but making some appearances in continental football and in domestic football for Liverpool. What are your thoughts on Shankland and Doak?
Well, first and foremost, I've really liked Jacob Brown. I think he's athletic, he's powerful, he's probably played in the games where like been starved the opportunities really for. If he maybe played in some of the games where we've been a bit more comfortable and scored a few more goals, even if it had just been practice matches, international friendlies rather than actually competitive ones. But I think when you think of Dykes, the kind of, I'm not so sure talisman's the right word, but he's certainly been a massive focal point and a real serious player for Steve in his tender really. Then you think of Shankland. I've always been a big fan of Shankland. I just think I watched him at Ibrox not too long ago against Rangers, doing the telly for the club, and starved the opportunities to get a hold of the ball. But he's clever. He uses his body well, and listen, he's tried and tested his scoring goals. He's done it at every level really. He says what he does on the tin. He reminds me a bit like a Chris Boyd, albeit his hold up play is maybe a bit different for Boydie. And Boydie's, listen, I'm pretty sure would fancy himself to be better than Shankland. He's top drawer, Chris Boyd was, but at the same time I see that goal scorer instinct. They score a variety of different goals, whether it be headers, whether it be tap-ins, whether it be wonderful ones, brilliant strikes. So I think he'll certainly be one that if he keeps on performing for Hearts and scoring goals which he has done in recent weeks, then he'll be one. You mentioned Doak. Doak's a funny one for me because I think when you get a special talent like the boy is, and I've only seen him from afar. He was a young boy at Celtic, and I used to pick down a day's kind of hear about him and ask how good he was, etc., etc. And I've kind of watched from afar to see how his kind of career's materialised. And you think back to I don't want to put him in the same bracket, but you think back to a Michael Owen going away with England. And didn't quote me on what tournament it was. A young lad, 17, 18, I'm sure he was, and he kind of let it up. You think of Wayne Rooney let it up, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on the boy, and I don't mean that. I'm just meaning that that comes off the tip of my tongue when I think of young, exciting talent. And sometimes you just need to be brave enough to put them on the plane and kind of unleash the shackles and go and see what they've got, because he's certainly an exciting talent. For him to be as thought of as highly as at Liverpool, and he'd been amongst the superstars down there, then the boy's obviously a massive talent. And I suppose there's a protection bit, I get that, but for me, I just think when you've got an exciting talent, I would like to see Steve unleash him, and he would be a punt, I suppose, but I think a good punt and a calculated one. So I think he's one that might put a wee bit of striker on some of the attack, a wee bit of pressure on some of the attacking players.
Steve Clarke might also have the headache of the four boys playing for Newcastle at the minute who haven't pledged their allegiance to Scotland on an international level, but are eligible. Those players being Anthony Gordon, Anthony Gordon, Tino Livramento, Harvey Barnes, and Elliot Anderson. Elliot Anderson was in the squad before, pulled out, supposedly through injury. If those four players were to say, you know what, Steve, I'll come and play for Scotland at the Euros, would you take them, or would you be loyal to the guys who have qualified for us already?
That's a hard one. I suppose that'll be a difficult one for Steve, one that I certainly wouldn't envy. There's no doubt that the four you mentioned are really talented players. Could they make the squad better? I've got no doubt, but I suppose when you mentioned Anderson, kind of been and then gone, and then Anthony Gordon, another one really talented boy, signed for big money, obviously for Everton and Newcastle. So and doing really well. Do you know what I mean? In a really good, high quality Newcastle side that will have aspirations of, well, obviously Champions League this year, but have aspirations obviously trying to get Champions League again next year, finishing top four. So you're talking about a real high level. So it'd be hard, I suppose. We're looking at it from a fan's perspective, I suppose, that we just want the best players to give the nation the best opportunity. But I think Steve will have to look at it in a wee bit more depth. and you mentioned that word loyalty, and you could argue there is none in football when it comes to being a player, I suppose, and it's a hard one because when you're the flavour of the month, you do well and everybody likes you, and then when you're not the flavour of the month or you didn't get offered another contract, it's amazing how cutthroat the game can be. But I think when Steve analyses they four in particular, I've got no doubt he'll love their quality, and I'm pretty sure he'll have a good relationship with them. He'll have spoke to them. He'll be trying to build up bridges. But I'd be surprised if any of the four of them end up in the squad. But listen, I'm not the Scotland manager, I suppose, but I'm only looking at for an outsider, really looking at the environment and the decisions that Steve's made in his tender as a Scotland manager. That he's no ruffled too many feathers, he's no cracked too many eggs, and I think there's a loyalty within Steve to the boys that have done really well for him, and I think I would be surprised if there was too many left field ones. But listen, I'll look from afar, and I'll be interested to see when that squad finally does get announced. Sorry, who is on that plane.
We have to chat to you, Kevin, about your own coaching career just now. Just saw that you've recently got your UEFA Pro licence. Can we expect to see you back in the dugout somewhere soon?
I would like to. It's been a long time, I suppose. But listen, I've kind of made peace with the opportunities. Just the harsh reality is for us in Scottish football, being ex-Scottish players, there only is 42 teams in the leagues. I've already been a kind of League Two manager and won the league, and I've been in it, worked in the academy, obviously, and at Rangers for 3.5, nearly 4 years. I've had my own academy now for just over 7 years, so I feel as though I've done obviously a lot of groundwork, and that was my choice. It's not that I'm any better than anyone else. It was just I felt like I wanted to learn, I wanted to take my time, and it was, I suppose, a risk in Kelty's part and a risk in my part, leaving a full-time job at Rangers to take that. And even if we were the worst manager and the worst coaches in the world, really, we probably couldn't have mapped it out any better than the success that we had. So not having another opportunity off the back of that, or the right opportunity, I suppose, because there has been sniffs here and there over the period of time. But I suppose it's just looking for that right one that there's a good fit for me and a good fit for the club, and somebody that believes in you, that they think you can take the club forward, and then I suppose that has to marry in with the kind of ideas and the vision that I have as a kind of individual and as a coach, that I feel as though I can get the best out of that. It's an opportunity that I can try my best to be successful at that. So I'd like to. A lot of hard yards within the pro licence. Delighted to finally get it over the line, but learnt a lot and got frustrated a lot, and it was a long old slog. A lot of computer work and a lot of. I heard Big Jig obviously talking Lee McCulloch when he was on your show about the game's change, and there's a lot of analysis. There's a lot of prep, a lot of planning, and a lot of stuff spent behind one of these screens, really. So the bit that I love is being in amongst the players and being on the pitch, and then the competitive nature that us ex-players have got, really, for standing on the sideline, and you never get what you've got back as a player playing. But I suppose the second substitute of that would be standing alongside a fellow coach, a fellow manager, and trying to outwit them and try to get an upper hand, I suppose, and get the 3 points. So I definitely miss the competitive bit and waiting for an opportunity, but I suppose it has to be right, and I have to obviously tickle somebody's fancy as such, and hopefully that'll, you never know in football, hopefully that'll not be far too round the corner.
Yeah, you alluded to it there, Kevin. So has there been offers, interest? Was it ever close that you were going to become a manager again?
Not so much close, but I've had a couple of opportunities to speak to clubs, and I suppose it's a frustrating one for us coaches or managers that are looking for opportunity, when I suppose every single job that comes up, and it's nice at times to be linked, I suppose, but I suppose the downside to that is people think that you're going for every job and you're not getting them, and then you've not worked for 12 to 18 months or whatever it is since we left Kelty. People think that you're potentially not very good at what you do, and you're going for loads of jobs and you're not getting them. So there's a catch to that, and listen, I'm always humbled. I've got no problem with people having an opinion or seeing it through their lens compared to my lenses. I'm really comfortable with that. But it's, I suppose, without giving too much away, the opportunities that come along were just didn't work for my life, really. And I've got 2 young boys that are obviously at the Hibs Academy. I'm basically a chauffeur service for them. I've got my own academy that I've worked tirelessly, really, to build it up. So I think the perfect balance is something that excites the club about me, and then I suppose me that gets excited about the club and kind of see a vision where I can kind of take it or what I can try and build, I suppose. And listen, that might not even exist. And the way I speak and how I present myself might not be everybody's cup of tea. So I suppose you need to have trust in somebody that hires you, and then that, as I mentioned earlier, that has to marry into the vision that I've got that hopefully can then get the deal over the line, I suppose. But whether the opportunities are on the horizon or even exist, I don't know. But I don't lose any sleep over lack of opportunity or whatever it is. What it is, I just work hard, I keep my head down, enjoy watching my boys, and every now and again I get a chance to speak about football, and I enjoy it. So that's where I'm at, really, mate.
Just finally from me then, Kevin, what's the goal? What's the dream? Where would you like to end up and for the rest of your managerial career? What's the plans?
I suppose I had a dream that I wanted to be not a dream. I like to set myself with individual goals. Listen, we all have a dream of being the best and being liked and winning and getting to the top, and having the prestige, leading right at the forefront of the, the the biggest clubs in the country, really. Do you know what I mean? And then where that takes you is opportunities to go down south. I'd love to manage in Europe. I suppose I've got the same dream as everybody else that sets out in coaching, so I'm not any different from anyone else. I set myself wee goals, and one of my goals was when I took the Celtic job and I decided to leave Rangers, obviously I was a full-time coach, albeit at B team level, just before obviously I left. My aspirations were to try and get my pro licence, which I'd started obviously at Rangers. I finished obviously when I was going through Kelly. I actually just finished it just there, but it's only because I missed part of it when I was on the course. I had to wait another year. So I had to go to Romania in the summer there with a new group to obviously finish mine. So that's it, done and dusted now. But it should have took me 2 years. It took me 3 years. And I did say to myself that I wanted to be a Premier League manager and have my pro licence by the time I'm 40. So I was 39 only a few weeks ago. So I'm kind of running out of time. So I don't know if that goal that I set is going to come to fruition or it's going to materialise. But I suppose you have to have wee incentives, I suppose, and I don't know if dream's the right word, but wee dreams to try and get opportunities to try and make them successful. And I'm not naive to say that, if you're not successful, there's that many people within this game want an opportunity and think they're better than everybody else, and we're all built the same, really. So we've got that testosterone that we think we're better than everybody else. It's just the way we're made. It's our mentality, really. So I'm not naive to think there's a million other coaches that think they're better than me and want that opportunity as well. So if it comes, great. If it don't, then I'm really passionate about helping the kids at the academy, and what we've built up is really successful for us. And as I mentioned, I've got two boys, 11 and 13, that are both at the high Bs, and I probably spent more time in the last year watching them and being a part of their life than I ever have, really. So on the flip side of it, I'm quite comfortable with what materialises.
Kevin, absolutely brilliant. Thanks again for taking the time to speak to us on PLZ Soccer this afternoon. Once again, thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully we'll see you back in the dugout very soon.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me.